Hey guys, and welcome to episode 15. On this episode, I speak with Haseeb Ibrahim and we talk all about homeschooling, how to do it, and what's it all about. Enjoy. Listeners out there who don't know you, could you just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, so I am Haseeb Ibrahim. I'm the youth schooler. I was a tech entrepreneur for many, many years. And then what happened in COVID with the supply chain stuff and the chip shortage, it really impacted my business. And about the same time, I had 3 children, and we were thinking about homeschooling them. But when my oldest was about to join school, and that made the decision to homeschool them really easy, because all kids were off school, and that enabled us to try it. And then as I began to try it, I started to research everything about homeschooling, and I learned so much about it, and I began to realize how negative school actually was.
Wow.
And how people didn't there was no awareness for this subject.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even during COVID times for me, basically everyone was homeschooling by default, pretty much. And I wasn't in that stage yet because my kids weren't old enough to go to school because they're quite young at the time. And then as you look into it, as you look into the background of schooling, what did I actually learn? And even you start thinking about yourself, like I started thinking like, what did I actually learn from school that is actually beneficial for me day to day? And you start to realize that actually, I remember this specific line from my dad years ago. It was parents' evening with my geography teacher, and my dad was just like, "So what's he gonna do with this when he leaves school?" I can't remember what the answer was, but even back then, I still remember it to this day. And I'm thinking like, yeah, so what I'm gonna do with geography? Like, okay, I'm doing great at geography, but so what? So I'd like to just go through a little bit the actual process you went through when you said that there was no research out there for homeschooling. So what could you just go through the step by step process that you went through emotionally and through your partner and what it was like for your kids? If you go through that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually my partner who got me into it. I, for lack of a better word, I didn't know any better. I thought school was just the typical path that all parents put their kids through. And actually, I was looking forward to school happening for my child because we had 3 kids at the time, and I could see that my partner was struggling. And I thought, right, well, if we introduce school for the older one, then maybe that'll take the weight off for her. And then she just suggested it herself that she didn't want to send them to school. And I thought, okay, well, you're so passionate about it, I'll look into it.
Because I can imagine in a relationship that can be like a tipping point, whereas one person says no, the other person says yeah. So props to you to be like, all right, I'll look into it. Because some people like dead set, like nah, like school is school. What do you mean? What do you mean they're not going to go to school? They're going to be homeschooled? Because I think originally when I thought about homeschool, you just thought, okay, so it's going to be the same way of schooling in the home, but it's actually not like that, is it?
Oh no, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's not really homeschooling, it's world schooling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now your kids are not locked up in school. You can take them out into the world.
Yeah.
And you think about when you were at school, how alien that concept was, to be out in the world 9 to 3, Monday to Friday. You kind of felt almost secluded from the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give you one example. Like, I was really, really introverted at school, and like no one helped me with that. So when I left school, went to college, and I only realized when two of my friends said, "Oh my, you're really quiet." I was like, "Am I?" In my head, I was like, "Am I?" Oh, there goes my earphones. Where did it go? Sorry. Yeah, and I was like, "Am I?" And then as the years go by, I'm starting to work on myself and doing it by myself, but no one helped me with it. I had to work out myself. But imagine if, I mean, I don't know whether it was a block but more of a social thing. I realized in social situations, it was a block. And like you said, when you're in school, you're only literally in school. You don't experience the outside world. And you know, as I grew older, looked in more into personal development and things like that. I was like, shit, this is actually important for just,
Mhm.
you know, day to day and like being in the real world. But I'm just going a step back because we were starting to talk about the steps that you took into,
Yeah.
you know, researching it and actually diving into it. So okay, you said to your partner that okay, you look into it. So what was that like then?
Yeah, so the first step I did was I went into Facebook and I looked for home ed communities. And then when I was in those communities, I was listening to the conversations people were having, and there were book recommendations there. And I was a big reader.
I love
Um,
books.
I
Please
I,
recommend
I
them
love
all.
reading. I love reading. I love listening to books as well. And when I started to go look at these books, they were basically laying it all out for you. Like, this is what's wrong with school. This is the way kids really learn. If you give them this amount of room, they will thrive better, you know? And then that became, I almost went from being sort of against it to now I'm championing it.
Yeah, I can
And
tell.
I started to talk to my family and friends about it. And you actually you come up against so much resistance with your family. And
Naturally, when it's something, especially with something so alien and everyone's so used to doing it in a certain way. Like, you know, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a health coach, and some of the things I talk about, like, I'll give you an example. The other day, this happened the other day with family. My one of my uncles, he's got osteoporosis,
Mhm.
really bad knees, and I just said to him, well, the cure is go to the gym and do some resistance training, and that will make the muscle basically put pressure on the bone to get stronger. And they all laughed at me. They all laughed at me, all of them. And I was like, oh, I've just paid £3,000, $3,000 for a course where professors are actually telling me this. It seems like this is a similar situation, no?
Yeah, it's exact similar situation. And you know what? I was actually quite surprised when you were saying earlier how your dad in the parents' evening asked the geography teacher, what is he going to do with this? Because typically, our parents' generation, especially from our background, they hold the teacher up on like a pedestal. It's like the teacher is right, absolutely right. It's like the same way they do with the doctor, actually,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I don't know if I think it's something from they immigrated over here, they held the West and the British in high esteem. So the institutions of the British and the West are in high esteem. And that's why we almost like capitulate, almost like bend to their way of thinking, their way of doing things,
Yeah.
even when it's not absolutely right. Actually, it's very wrong.
And could you tell us why you think it's absolutely wrong?
If for the education perspective,
Yeah,
because
if we could, yeah. Yeah,
I've
I'm
got
sure you can go loads of ways about it. So let's just stick to the education perspective. I'm sure we can do another podcast for everything else.
well, when you look at the history of school, when you look at the history of school and how it came about, it was actually introduced by the Prussians. They tested the first compulsory education models.
Do you say the Russians or the Prussians?
Prussians,
Okay,
Prussians.
who's that?
The Prussia was like in between Germany and Russia at the time, and they found that when they raised a generation of kids who went to school, they were a lot more obedient because when they're put in a room and they're told to, there's this authority figure, you must always obey this authority figure at all times. And they were disciplined harshly. They weren't allowed to speak up.
They used to
They
get
weren't allowed to.
smacked in the bum with a book, innit?
Oh yeah, yeah. Corporal punishment was part and parcel of it.
I remember old school like programs where they used to have a cane and they used to whip kids with a cane. Wasn't that a thing?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure that was a thing
absolutely.
like back in there everywhere, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, pain is a very hard hitting
Harsh,
lesson.
harsh lesson.
Yeah,
I'm sure you and me know that as well back in our day.
and when you get pain with a lesson, you memorize it so much more strongly. So what they noticed was this cyclical peasants' revolt that would come about when the common folk would be disgruntled with the rich barons and the control that they were asserting over the common folk. Eventually the peasants would revolt and have a revolution and bring them down and stuff. But it would be cyclical. It would just follow a cycle. It'd be a case of taxes and everything get higher and higher and higher. The conditions for the poor get worse, 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 and then eventually they have a revolution, and they overthrow everyone. And then the barons and whatnot are forced to give them better conditions, and then the cycle continues. They slowly increase taxes, decrease conditions, living conditions. And they found that when they put a generation of kids through school, they didn't do this peasants' revolt. And that's where it began. Then
How long ago was that? Do you remember?
this was 1800s.
Okay.
So in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, so I'm thinking as well. It wasn't that long.
It wasn't that long ago. This concept of school was pretty new to everyone. Then Rockefeller in America, they sat down and they talked about creating the workforce essentially. And
everything just goes back to Rockefeller, doesn't it, these days? Huh?
Yeah, I mean, they were like pioneers. They were visionaries. And ultimately, school is about uplifting the companies and institutions that are in power, wealth-wise.
And it's interesting because we wake up for school, get to school by 8:30, finish at 3, and probably 90% of the people who leave school, finish university, finish college, university, they're in a 9 to 5 job, which is more or less the same timings, and you're back in a box again.
Yeah, pretty much. It prepares them for life as an office worker. But the thing is, school is not like, I'd say the only institution which is like school would be blue collar work.
And what's the definition of blue collar work for those that don't know?
Blue collar work is like factory work. We're sitting in, going, doing the same repetitive task over and over again. But I think I did read that they'd done a study where they asked kids who went into blue collar work, what do they prefer? And they chose the blue collar work.
Wow. Why is that? Is that because it's just easier to do, or did they say why?
Yeah, because they had a bit more autonomy at blue collar work, and they had a bit more control over what they did with their time. They still got to have a laugh with their workmates and stuff. That it wasn't like be quiet. And there was a few things like that. But other than that, the school is not representative of the real world. Not at all. It's more representative of prison.
And how is that then?
Well, in prison is the only place where you're told what to do. You're directed by a bell. You're told when you can go eat. There's a lot of similar things, and like everybody's the same around you. Everyone's in the same position, like in the hierarchy, and that's why it creates this sort of competitive environment, because everyone feels like they're at the same level. But naturally, humans, especially men, they want to assert dominance. Women as well, they want to assert dominance. They do it in different ways. And that's why in environments like school and environments like prison, there's bullies that manifest. Whereas if in school they had like mixed age classrooms, you might have a bully that might manifest. But then like an older kid who's more responsible would,
Wow.
you know, would
Yeah.
shut him down basically. And that's the thing. The other thing with having mixed age classrooms is when you have older kids and they are somewhat feel like they're in a position of responsibility over the younger kids, they will assert themselves more sensibly.
What is the reason why they put same age group together then, actually? That's do you know why? Why they do that in schools?
Yeah, it lends itself to the whole scoring system. Okay, so your this age group can do maths at this ability when they
It's
go to
for
do their
the statistics, basically. It's more easier to do the statistics that way, by the sounds of it.
is purely for statistics. And
Wow.
that's the way the people who designed these institutions look at us as statistics. Okay, we'll hire him because he did the best in this age group and got the best exam results.
Yeah.
And that's not the way we should be looking at our children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have do you have children?
I have two girls who are 3 and 5, and I'm going to talk to you about emotional regulation because you mentioned that in one of your posts, and I thought that was really good because it's come up literally last week.
Okay.
It's come up where the teachers don't understand that my daughter is really emotionally intelligent because we brought up that way.
Yeah.
She understands what you mean. She understands what you say, and she can read your emotions from your face. And that day, she came back home crying. I'll speak to you about that in a moment. I just want to ask: do you know the statistics of how many kids are homeschooled now these days? Because I saw something a couple of weeks ago, and that's probably what lent me to come and contact you because it just popped up on my Instagram feed.
Yeah.
It came up where it's like, I think compared to like, I don't know, 20, 50 years ago, like more and more people are homeschooling their kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the numbers that have jumped in only the last few years. So I'll send you an infograph. I've got one.
That'd be really good.
But I think it was 3, 4 years ago, it was maybe like 1.5 million in the UK. And then now it's 5 million in the
Wow.
UK. So it's like really jumping like exponentially. And it seems to be heading this direction. And I remember when we went to the home education community in our local city, there was a lot of people with kids our age, young children there. And
Interesting.
it showed that it was seeing a surge
Yeah.
of uptake.
Amazing. So what was like understanding the law in homeschooling? How does that work then?
It's really simple, actually. People don't know this, but the default position in the UK is homeschooling. So
Oh,
if you
is
don't,
it? Okay.
yeah, so if you don't apply for school, the state naturally assumes you're homeschooling them.
Ah, interesting. But what are kind of things that has anything come have some like obviously you most likely had like social workers knock on your door just to check on your kids and stuff like that? No?
No, no, nothing like
Oh.
that.
So how do
Uh,
they like do checks and stuff like that? Because I've heard stories online where they knock on your door saying, "Oh, where are you?" and stuff like that, or that doesn't
yeah, yeah.
happen.
That does happen for people that have taken their kids out of school.
Okay. Oh, as in like if they're when they should be in school when they're not there.
Yeah, so they've applied for school, they've put their kids into school, then they've removed their kids from school. And that gives these councils more authority over you.
Mm.
So think about that.
Hmm.
So when you apply to school with your child, you are giving the council authority over your child. So when you remove your child from school, they they feel like they still have that authority over your child. So they can come and check on you.
Wow. So how do you stop them from having the authority once you've left, let's say?
I mean, you
I
need
don't-
to you need to obviously comply with them
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to some degree, but you also need to like assert your authority over
Authority.
them, let
Yeah.
them know that you're doing a good job and you don't need them,
Okay.
and whatever they're doing is harassment.
Got you. What is it that schools are missing from teaching children these days then, would you say, from what you've learned from homeschooling your kids?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing is creativity and critical thinking is the biggest thing. The critical thinking is not that big a deal until, maybe they're like 8, 9, 10, 11,
Mhm.
because they don't really start using that part of their mind until about age 7.
Because the first
So,
couple of years is this play, isn't it? Learning through play.
oh yeah, learning through play. So the biggest thing, is imagination, is using that muscle in the brain, because it is like a muscle. The more you use it, I don't know if you tell your kids like bedtime stories at night.
Yeah, so literally yesterday, we spent like the last half an hour, probably was an hour, where first we were all in a circle, we were singing nursery rhymes. And then when my two girls didn't have any nursery rhymes in their head, we start improvising and start making it up. And
Yeah,
it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Like what like I was like, wow, like both my girls are really like imaginative. Like they've made
yeah,
up a song and a story out of nothing.
yeah. And the kids are all naturally imaginative, and we we kill it. We kill it by putting them through school, because they get put into an environment where they're told that it's useless, essentially, because
Mm,
you know that the most important thing you can learn at school is learning how to memorize really boring stuff.
yeah.
So at nighttime, I'll tell my kids bedtime stories, and I started out just by reading bedtime stories to them.
Mhm.
But what what's actually more enjoyable for them, and it's a challenge for you, and it's enjoyable for a parent as well, is like to come up with stories on the spot.
Yeah.
And that's you using your imagination muscle.
To be
And
honest,
it's
sometimes I get bored of just reading the books that they've got, and I just do that. You know what? It's just easier doing that sometimes, and then it
Yeah,
makes me think on the spot. And then I think sometimes I do ask my daughters, and to be fair, they're quite young, so maybe I'll do that at another time. Ask them to like, can you tell me a story? Just make it up on the spot, just to see what they
yeah,
say.
yeah. That's a amazing like mental task to get your children to do. I do that in the car with them. I say, okay, who's got the best story?
To be
Someone
fair, I'm glad
starts
you
with.
said that because they're getting bored of playing I Spy in the car.
So it starts out with, yeah, once upon a time, the end. And then I go, okay, who can do better than that?
Got
And then
you.
someone goes, once upon a time, there's a tree, the end. And I go, okay,
I remember there's a game that we played in primary school actually, where it's like you're in a circle of children, and each person has to say a word in the whole story until it finishes. So it's kind of similar to that, isn't it?
yeah, building on it. And it's funny, you watch them, they plagiarize each other's stories and stuff, and but the stories get better and better, and it forces them to, think and use their imagination and stuff like that.
That's
So
cool, man.
imagination and creativity sort of go hand in hand, and that really gives them the ability to have that out of box thinking and
Yeah.
look at a problem from a different way. Whereas school really just gives them the tools to to do something one way, and it's like the tested way, and it's the way their teachers have been trained to do it. And I don't think you're really going to have a big impact on the world if you're forcing them into a box and forcing them in a well walked path through life.
Yeah, I mean, over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure you've seen the news of what's going on around the world. And one subject that I hated and I thought was a waste of time at school was history. I just thought it was a waste of time because in my head, I was like, I'm just revising stories that I didn't think back then, whether it was true or not. I just thought, yeah, history is good to know, but I didn't think it was good to study if my focus is math, science, and English.
Yeah.
So my question is to you: the core subjects, math, science, and English. So how do you go about teaching those subjects then?
Okay, so I'm glad you said that, because you only get tested for math, science, and English until, is it year 6? And then you go into year 7, right?
Hmm.
That's what it's like for me when I went to school in junior school. I went to school in London, actually.
How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, cool.
So when when we were leaving year six, we had to do our exams, and it was only math, science, and English. So if it's, I'm only getting tested on math, science, and English, why does everything else matter?
Matter. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm with you on the whole history thing. And it was the scope of it. It was like, okay, so history is so vast. Why are we just doing this small section here? And like, how is that relevant to my life? And a lot of school is like that. It's like, how is what you're teaching me relevant?
Yeah, when I was at school, at secondary school, we had our core subjects for GCSEs, and then we had to pick options, and the options was like some of the options that people picked was just for the sake of picking it. So like everyone was fighting for textiles. I mean, if you're gonna do that at some point in your life and focus on it, then great. But like people were just like fighting for like options that they just wanted to fill in that gap. I just thought if you're in secondary school, back then, I thought if I was in secondary school, like, should I just focus on my core subjects as those are the ones that are most likely going to help me throughout life?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So the way we approach maths, science, and English as a home educating family, English we do reading every day. So, and reading is not, you know, is your child going to be in a position where you're not going to be with them? Like, when is that going to be?
Mm.
I mean, obviously there might be, you know, emergency instances, like if you've lost them or something like that,
Yeah, of
and it's
course. Yeah.
important for them to know how to read. But I think the problem with school is they force reading on them, where some children are not ready to learn how to read.
Yeah.
Their strengths lie somewhere else, and learning should be about efficiency. So if you're forcing something on a child when they're not ready to learn it, it's going to take them a lot longer to learn. So could they have been doing something else in that time? Whereas they might get to like 7, 8 years old and they might learn it, they will learn it really quickly. And they'll feel like they didn't waste their time and it was enjoyable and they wanted to learn it. Because what you really need is you need a willing mind when it comes to home education.
Definitely, definitely. I wanted to ask, by the way, wouldn't it be difficult if you got two parents that work? I mean, I can imagine this could potentially only work if one person doesn't work and one person
Yeah,
does, obviously. And then obviously you're an entrepreneur as well. So that's even better because you're your own boss. So
yeah,
I've noted down here, it's most likely to work the best way possible if someone is their own boss and the other person doesn't have to work.
yeah. You need one parent to be present with the kids, of course. And that's only in the beginning, because once you get them to like 10, 11, 12, then the other parent can work because they only need supervision. You know, one parent could be working from home, the other could be working out, uh, and the kids can be doing their learning and stuff inside the house.
What do you mean? Like leave them to it kind of thing? I'm just trying to understand what you mean.
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely leave them to it, because my home education philosophy is about teaching autonomy and self-reliance. So
Okay.
once we give them the ability to read, write, maths, basic arithmetic, now they have the tools to self-teach.
But what about, because you said so the home would be obviously the place of their schooling, but what I find is like the home should be somewhere place where you relax and stuff. So isn't it a place, or are you saying that you're bringing up your kids in this homeschooling way where it's like they're always learning about whatever wherever they are and whatever they're doing? Is that how you can differentiate from going away from the house being just a place of chilling and relaxing as well?
Well, do you know, that's quite important what you said there. And you're absolutely right. Your home is its own unique space.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, so if you view your home as a place that you chill and relax, then you say to your child, do 100 push-ups. They're not going to be up for it. They're not going to be up for it. And then if you say to them, okay, go clean your room, they're not going to be up for that either, because it's like, no, I'm here to relax and chill and stuff. And that's the way we view our house. But our kids are in the home a lot more. So we need to instill in them a different tolerance for effort.
Yeah,
But
I think so. I think you're saying is like change the mindset, the way they think about how they see the home, right?
yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think in this, the school culture is like, yeah, what the the classroom is to work,
It has to be
and
a desk and chair and a whiteboard. That should be a picture in your mind to say like this is time to work. And if it's
yeah,
like if you see a so I can imagine when your kids see a sofa, they would start doing activities on there like drawing or doing whatever, being creative. But if it was someone else who just sees the sofa as a place just to lie down and go to sleep or and relax, and they would do it.
yeah, watch TV basically.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how a lot of people see the couch.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. All right. So, what are the pros and cons of homeschooling?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the emotional connection, it's the connection of being their teacher as well.
Which how life should be. Your parents should be your original teacher, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have a different respect for someone who teaches you to get better at something.
And who better
So
to do it than your parents?
exactly, because they know you best. So like, in order for learning to be effective, I'm just going to do a video on this. I wrote the script for it and stuff. But in order for learning to be effective, we need to have a stronger memory with it. And when you're at school, you're in a metal and glass building. You're sitting on a plastic chair with a plastic pen, doing boring stuff that's not relevant to your life. Whereas when you have a strong memory with something, there's often more senses you can attach to it. There's like a smell, there's a touch, there's a taste. Another way is it's relatable to your life somehow, something that you've done before. And the last one is there's an emotional connection because you remember the way it made you feel when you learnt this thing. And if you can tie those three things to a memory, it can be a lot stronger. So if you're a parent, you know your child best, so you know what you can relate something to when you're teaching them something new. Oh, it's just like, when you did that thing. And they go, oh, okay, right. And when you're doing things out in the field, when they're touching things, when they're smelling things, again, that gives them a stronger memory connection to it. And the relatability thing is also tied to the emotional thing because they're like, okay, well, when I did that, it made me feel like this. So it was like, okay. So I can tie more things to it. And again, it makes the learning more efficient. And what better person to do that than the person who knows them best?
That is so interesting because my eldest daughter reminds me of me. Like the way she is just reminds me of myself going to school. I ask her, and I've stopped asking her as much now. I ask her, "Oh, so what did you do in school today?" She has no idea.
Do you know what?
And how often does that happen? I wonder.
Do you know what? My son did this. He went to nursery, and then the nursery was like 2 doors from our house. So I was like, fair enough. And he used to come home and we'd ask him, what did you do today? He went, nothing. And we just used to think it was him. And then his sister went to school, nursery, and she came home and we go, what do you do today? Oh, nothing. So, okay.
So what did you do when you heard that? Like what did you think? What did you feel? Because for
You
me,
know,
for me, like my daughter is counting down the days to the weekend. Like she just wants the school week to be over, and she's still like that now, and that's what my worry is.
yeah, yeah. And you're self-employed, so you know how detrimental that is to.
Well, I'm not self-employed. I have a day job and I'm self-employed as well. I do everything.
Okay, well, you have a vocation that you're doing because you're passionate about it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and do you want your children to live that way, where they're counting down the days, where they're clock watching, calendar
No,
watching?
no, 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 not at all.
It's
Not
not
at
the
all.
way. It's not the way anyone should live their life.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's why you're doing the things you're doing, because you want to
Trying to get out the matrix, huh?
transition out of the matrix, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I'm trying. It's mentally taxing. Not gonna lie, it's mentally taxing. And even when I was looking into homeschooling, it's I didn't look into it how you did. Excuse me. I didn't look into it how you did, but I thought like, and I did ask around. I asked some friends and family, do you know anyone that homeschools? And then my brother-in-law was like, yeah. My mate does it from work and purely homeschooled. Gave me the guy's contact number, but I just thought my natural thought was it's just gonna be like how we're meant to do how I'm meant to teach kids in school, we're doing it at home. But again,
Yeah.
like it's like you've gone through this conversation, it's not like that. And I think that's key. It's not like that. It's more learning about life skills. Like, the most common meme that I see over the past years, like you go to school, come out, and they don't teach you about how to pay taxes and council tax and all the rest of it. They don't teach you anything like that. Which is strange when you think about it.
They didn't teach you how to vote.
yeah. How to decide, like critical thinking, right?
Yeah, they don't give you any tools in how to actually make the world a better place.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just to be a cog in the world.
Yeah, a cog in the system, and one massive system. I guess one of the other pros are holidays. You can go on holiday whenever you want.
Yeah, that's great actually, because recently my son he turned 8, and I'd taken him go-karting. I was like, right, we'll go during the week. It'll be dead. And I totally forgot it was October week. So he was the smallest guy out on there, and I felt so bad for him because I was hoping that we'd get the track to ourselves. And that is one of the big benefits of homeschooling, is like you're not paying those premiums on the holidays anymore. You can just pick up, go wherever you want. And that's the part of the reason why I'm doing this business, is because I want to have products that are purely digital based, so I can have that geographic freedom as well.
And what's that business all about? Is this basically what you're doing, teaching how to homeschool? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I've got a course as well that I sell.
Okay.
And my course is about screen time and how to. I think a lot of good parents, they'll do this already, where they'll use screen time like a carrot.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to get on the TV, then go do XYZ. So I took that concept and built it into an entire system where there's a pre-screen time routine, there's a post-screen time routine. The pre-screen time routine like builds them up progressively. It's like a fitness course for kids. And I'll send you some of the pictures so you can show them for some of the results that we've been getting. Like
definitely,
my 8-year-old, he's got an 8-pack.
What,
Right now.
really?
He's got an 8-pack clearly defined.
Wow.
And my daughter, she recently done 100 burpees in 4 minutes 23 seconds, which is like elite athlete level numbers.
Yeah.
And we only started doing these burpees like 8-9 months ago, and it just started out really simple. Like, okay, so you want to get on the TV, give me 20 burpees. And then we just built it up and up and up, and I've developed different methods and how to increase their fitness performance.
Interesting you mentioned about the exercise thing, because there was a video a couple of months ago, or maybe it was early this year. Sometimes I lose track of time. They're saying, oh, PE today, how PE was back in the day, where they were doing like monkey bars and, proper like physical activity. And these days it's like, kicking a ball here and there for like an hour. I'm not saying that's bad, but it was more physical. Yeah. It was very more taxing. And I guess it made people more, tougher for the real world.
Yeah, and that's another thing that they do in state school, is it's commonly these sports like football, like soccer, that get pushed most, whereas in private school they'll do rugby, they'll do hockey, and there's more pain involved in these sports. So the leaders of our country, they're getting taught lessons in pain. So it
Yeah.
increases their threshold for it when they go out into the world and try to achieve the things that they're trying to achieve. Whereas in state school, they're playing soccer or football, and you look at them on TV and they're raising them to be fairies.
And I'm glad we actually start talking about this because you're talking about being raised to be like fairies. Like as you can see, people are getting softer and softer. They're getting offended by anything and everything.
Yeah.
So the benefit of being being homeschooled is that you can choose how your kids want to be taught and how much pressure you can put on your child, I guess. Because one thing for me personally, it does frustrate me a little. I get it, you can't put too much pressure on your kids, but a little bit pressure, you're gonna make diamonds, aren't you?
Oh yeah, totally. There is that fine balance of pressure which enables them to grow more. If you do too much, you'll scare them, you'll hurt them, you might put them off. But if you give them enough, then that's going to force them to grow. And it's not pressure. It's not just pressure. It's stress as well. It's an
Stress is a
amount of
good thing.
stress.
Stress is a
Yeah,
good thing, obviously. And there's different types of stress. I think I put a post about it actually. But yeah, I think like, for example, if you're like bodybuilding in a gym, how does your muscle get bigger? You have to stress the muscle. And
exactly.
it just works for the mind as well. You have to put a bit of stress. Like I've learned myself, like when I've been in like difficult situations, I've learned the most from it. And I've actually
Yeah,
produced the best work from it as well. Stress and putting pressure is very important. One of my mentors, he trains like world-class athletes, and now his children, one of them plays for Fulham Football Club now, and he's a teenager. And
yeah,
in his last podcast he did for someone, he spoke about how when his child's done something well, he doesn't tell him straight away that he's done well. He tells them,
uh-huh.
look, you can do better. Even though
Yeah,
in his head he knows well. And the reason why he says that is because he knows if you tell a child that they've done well, they'll be like, all right, that's it. I don't need to improve anymore. But there's
yeah,
always room for improvement, isn't there?
yeah, yeah. No, true. Do you know what? That's something recently I've been going through, and hearing it now is, you know, really insightful because my son has accomplished some incredible things in his physical aspects in the last 8 9 months, and like I'll send you the video. Actually, he did
Yeah, yeah.
100 military burpee push-ups. So 100 military burpees. That's like a burpee push-up, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He did 100 non-stop.
Wow. How old is he?
It's 8.
Wow. Well, the thing is, I think there's going to be half the population be like, you're doing that to your child. And the other half and be like, well, it's just part of life. It's about finding where the line is. You know what I mean?
And you know, he did it maybe like a month or so ago. He did it again recently, and I feel like now I've created a ceiling for him. Whereas with with anyone, you know, it's all about pushing that ceiling further and further away. And I
Yeah.
like this idea of
It's about
not showing them
breaking the ceiling. It's breaking the
breaking this,
ceiling.
like, yeah, the next layer of the onion. So yeah, I'm becoming more accustomed to this idea of pushing that ceiling more and saying to
Yeah.
them, yeah, it was good, but you know, you need to do better.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Sex education in schools, you did a really good video about that. I think you called it S&M. What did even that stand for? I don't even know what does that stand for?
Sadism and masochism.
Say that again?
Sadism and
Sadism.
masochism.
Okay, what's that? Because you said the video is quite funny. You're like you basically said that, oh, this is not taught in school. So hold on a second. Is
Yeah.
why would I take my kid to a school that teaches that?
Yeah, and that's because I think Rishi Sunak actually ordered an inquiry into this, but it was crazy how they got away with it in the first place. If you looked at the changes to the sex education program in schools, they were teaching things like how to choke your partner.
What? No.
Yes, they're
No.
teaching
Come
them
on,
about.
you gotta send me the link for that. I don't know about that one, man.
You can look it up. You can look it up. I'll send you a link as well. They're also teaching because you have to remember that this choking concept is emerging now. It's becoming more common in, you know, young people having sex.
Yeah.
So now the schools feel like they're the ones that need to teach the responsibility part of it.
It's crazy, by the way, because I know quite a few people that work in schools, and there's sex education people come into the school, and they're giving out condoms to everyone, saying, "Oh, safe sex, safe sex, safe sex." And one of the girls stood up and said, "Well, shouldn't you tell everyone to stop having sex rather than giving us protection to actually do it?" And then basically the colleague that I know, the colleague that I know, in her head, she was just like, because that's one way of stopping it.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy thought process. And
it's in general, school is like becoming a more and more confusing environment. So it's not just this sex thing, it's other things. And
mate, you leave school and you don't know what to do. Like the first question you ask, like, "Oh, so what do you want to do now you left school?" I'm like, I don't know. I've been taught so many different subjects. Like it's like it just seems like where we come out, it's like how we're meant to decide, how we're still meant to decide. It's mad. It's mad.
Are you okay talking about the transgender thing?
Yeah, we can talk whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Yeah, so there's a book. There's a book I read on it, and because I was fascinated by this concept of why people are doing it. Why is it becoming such a trend now? So I looked into it, and there was one book that I read. It's called Irreversible Damage. Okay, and in the book they referenced these statistics at this clinic called the Tavistock clinic in London, which is the biggest sex change clinic in the UK, and
wow.
They had their statistics there for the demographic of people that applied to get a sex change. And if you look at the numbers, again, I'll send you this infograph.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
If you look at the numbers, I think they started at maybe like 11, 12-year-olds, and the numbers got higher and higher, and they peaked at 17. And then the amount of 18-year-olds that are applying to have their sex change compared to 17-year-olds was like this. There was like a huge drop off.
Oh my God. And obviously that's no money for the clinic, is it?
Yeah, well, it's less money for the clinic, yeah, of course. But it tells you a lot about how a child is progressing through life. And then when they get to a point where 18 is like a significant marker in anyone's life, because it gives them more legal rights, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's the same time when they leave school. And for me, I tied it back to, because I was thinking about education, I tied it back to how education is now propagating this, is causing this to happen, because we're giving children a very confusing environment to grow up in. And as they're getting into their teenage years, when they want to assert more authority over themselves and what they do, they're stuck in this prison environment where, no, you need to be told what to do. And it's a form of rebellion against the system, because it's a way of, back in the day, they did it by getting tattoos.
How is it?
Yeah. Whereas if you give a child a home education and you teach them autonomy and self-reliance, then they won't have this rebellion phase in their teenage years that we're so used to. Yeah, that's the way we look at teenagers, don't we?
They're just throwing different messages left, right, and center, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, that's how every parent looks at. You'll hear this all the time. Oh, wait till they're teenagers. And why do teenagers behave badly? We didn't evolve for thousands of years for your teenager to become a pain in the ass.
Yeah. The most common thing I hear is like, wait until they're 18, they can decide what they want to do. But and I always say this, like, how can you wait until a number without actually understanding what that child or person actually is like mentally?
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen it so many times where like, oh, wait until they're 21. They're 21 and they're still the same person. They're still like
Yeah.
immature, haven't understood what life is like, don't know how to work hard. Little things like that where it just adds up. And then you're just waiting for a specific number because the government have put that number out there. I'm not saying the government have said, oh, wait till 21 and they can decide what they want. But I think in America it's 21, in England it's 18, where they're seen kind of like an adult. It's just that number that's been put out there, and like,
Yeah.
you know, in the mind, you see that number so many times. Oh, you know, this parent said this about their child as
Yeah.
well. Once they're 18, they can sort it out. Oh, and it's like life doesn't work like that, does it?
No, it doesn't work like that at all. I mean, you do things when you're ready to do them. You shouldn't have some magic number there that gives you now you have the right to do what else you want to do now. You know, there's 14-year-olds out there that are more responsible than
Yeah,
21-year-olds.
yeah.
I've met 7-year-olds in the street in Morocco that have got more sales persuasive skills than guys in their 20s over here. Just because, you know, they're out in the world, they're exposed to it, and they learn better when they're out in the world and they're exposed to it.
Definitely.
And yeah, sorry, I just wanted to tie up that thing I was talking about with
Yeah,
the trans thing. Is it's because as a child ages, as they approach 18, the level of frustration grows every year because they want to be an adult. They're looking at this magic number in the sky. Once I have that number, I'll have authority over what I get to do.
hmm,
And and at the same time, in parallel, they're going through the hardest exam, like the most life defining exams of their life.
yeah.
So they're already in a very stressful environment. They're already in a confused environment. They want to assert themselves, they're unable to, and they're looking at this magic number of when they'll be set free, and it creates this huge amount of frustration. And when they get to 17, that's why you see these massive numbers of people applying for sex changes.
Mad, mad. I want to take a couple of steps back actually, because this popped into my mind. So let's say you're homeschooling your child and they want to go into medical school. And I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, like, you know, you need to be really good at maths and science, for example. So how would you tackle that then? Like, would you get a tutor in because it's some more high level stuff? I'm just speaking from a standpoint of a parent who's homeschooling but doesn't have the skills to teach them high level stuff to get them into university if their child wants to do that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So what I encourage people to do is if you want to go to university, make sure it's for medicine, law, engineering.
Yeah, that's what I said
Those
to
are
my kids
only,
as well. I said to my kids
yeah,
now, it's like there's no point in going because any other degree is just a waste of time.
exactly. Exactly. So if they are going to do medicine, for example, I'm not sure what it's like now, but back when I was younger, it was three A levels you needed to get into a university, most university degrees.
Mhm.
So if you just focus on those three subjects from young, you will be able to get into university before than you would if you went to high school.
But how would someone get their child to learn these high level subjects?
Okay, so for example, you may only know it to a certain level, then you would need to bring a tutor in, and a tutor could be just once a week to explain the concepts,
Mhm.
and then the kid does the work by themselves.
I guess if you just focus on the core subjects and you're homeschooling, that would be cheaper, I guess, or might you can tailor it to how you want it because it's going to be revolving about your day life, isn't it?
Yeah, so have you heard of Kumon?
No.
So Kumon is like this after school um, extra maths and English class system, and they typically charge £65 per month per child per subject,
Wow.
and it gives you daily worksheets to do. And there's one class which is a week which you need to go in, and the teacher explains the work to you. So we were doing this for a little bit, but I found my kids were like young at this point, and it was
Yeah.
maybe not as it was maybe too expensive for what they were doing. And
Yeah.
there was, I think at this early stage, at kids, you just want to develop them again where their strengths are, because you want to build that confidence through teaching competency.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking at going to do an exam, you can first of all, you can just pay the exam institute to sit the exam, and then in preparation for the exam, would you could do something like Kumon, or get the textbooks and just follow them like anyone would if they went to school.
Amazing. That's cool, man. That's
Because
cool.
there's nothing really exceptional about school. They just give you a textbook,
Yeah.
they give you a teacher, the teacher explains the concept to you, you repeat it until it hopefully sticks to memory.
Yeah, and they're teaching 29 other kids as well in the same class, and like, how are they meant to give them all their attention? Like,
You can.
and it's like, and that's why parents get private tuitioning, because their child is not learning. Well, it's either they're not learning, because that was my case. I wasn't learning, so they gave me private tuition, and I learned more in my private tuition than I did in class.
Yeah.
You did a really good video about when a child says I'm bored. So when your child says I am bored, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, boredom's a transient state. You know, boredom
So
passes.
what's the definition of that transient state?
Transient is like no one stays bored forever. Like, tell me your child says I'm bored, and then 1 hour later they say I'm still bored, because they'll figure out something to do in that time. Or, they might do something and then stop doing that thing and then say I'm bored, but they done something in that time. So it's actually okay when your child says I'm bored. It's good when they say I'm bored, because I always say to them, all right, now you think of something good to do.
Yeah, like when my daughter said that a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking in my head, like when I was her age, well, not her age, but a bit older, I was maybe like 8 or 9. I was like, you're bored. Like, look how many toys you've got. Come, let's make a story. So I've literally gone to the front room, got all her toys out, put them in a row, and I just started a story out of nothing. And then I kind of like stopped the story. I said, like, now you carry on the story. And now what she's done is she's, she's just like, oh, this is a new world out here with all these toys lined up. Like, I didn't know Minnie Mouse was into this. You know what I mean? So, and I think maybe sometimes as a parent, we have to kind of like give them that idea as well,
Yeah, no.
if they're stuck, because I know my daughter, maybe it's because of schooling, I don't know, she's a bit she was a bit stuck, like she didn't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah. You can do like suggestions like this, or when you go draw something, or when you go play with your toys, and like
Yeah,
do
mate,
this with
like
your
I had all the
toys.
wrestling toys. Yeah, I was stone cold
Yeah.
stunning all of them with my little toy, all of them.
But what I do is I want my child to have that initial spark of inspiration, because that builds more trust in their ability to self-entertain.
So my worry is then, like, how do you get that? You just wait until they actually spark it themselves, because like,
Yes, exactly.
okay,
Exactly.
no matter how long it takes.
No matter how long it
Okay,
takes.
that's a good
Because
point, actually. Yeah.
that's a process. That's a process. They get better at doing that. Get
It
better
is.
at getting that spark.
It is. It
You
is
know,
because you talk about that sparking for adults, even for me as well. Like, I've just uploaded episode 13 today, and I'm getting some like really good guests on. And the bonus that I'm speaking to you is that this is a subject that I think is so important, so interesting as well. So
yeah. And you know what? That's what you want your daughter to have, that ability,
yeah,
of being able to come up with things. So it's okay just to like leave her to her and say, no, you come up with something to do. Otherwise, she'll become dependent on you.
yeah,
She'll,
that's true.
she'll come
Actually,
to you and
yeah,
say,
that's a good
oh no,
point.
yeah. And you
That's
want to teach dependency,
definitely,
in
definitely
independency.
dependency as well. Yeah.
But yeah, so I started this maybe like 4 or 5 months ago,
Ah, okay.
and it was slow in the beginning, but like the last few weeks, it's just like starting to snowball a
Amazing,
little bit, and
amazing.
I'm getting so much good encouragement and stuff about it. It seems like a very important subject to be speaking on, and I don't think there's a lot of people in my in this sector, in the homeschooling sector, talking about it the way I'm doing with the
Yeah,
the
interesting.
monologue. I'm definitely in the space of wellness for kids, like teaching
Yeah,
your kids
that's
how
how
to
I see
function.
it.
Yeah, fitness for kids as well. Well, I mean, that's part of what my course is about. Is like,
Interesting.
I was talking about having that tolerance of effort, in your
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, if you want your daughter to get good at tidying her room, then you build her tolerance effort in the
Oh
house.
mate, she's so, oh my God, talking about tidying her room. Like, it doesn't matter what time, bless her, bless her. It doesn't matter what time she wakes up. It could be she wakes up in the middle of the night just to sleep next to me in my bed. She will do her bed no matter what. And
That's amazing.
it is amazing. My youngest, she's a bit of a rebel. She is a rebel. She's. I took a snap of a couple of weeks ago where I showed a picture of my eldest daughter's bed and a picture of my youngest daughter, like polar opposites. To be fair, my youngest has been treated like the baby of the family, and that's something which
Yeah.
we're working on. Like, she's literally does whatever she wants. Whereas my eldest, she's like, she knows the importance of doing your bed, manners, and all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. These are like exercises, aren't they, essentially? And they just become
Yeah.
ingrained in the memory because
Yeah.
when I was young, my parents did everything for me and I didn't learn anything.
Yeah. And that's amazing that you're doing that. It's amazing that you're doing that
It's
because
tough. It's not easy, but
yeah.
I'd say it's more my wife that's helped as
Yeah.
well. But like, I'm kind of like carrying on. Like, oh shit, this is actually good. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Because yeah, you want them used to doing chores in the house.
Yeah,
And then they'll do them with
second nature, isn't it?
second nature, actually. Yeah, because a lot of parents, they don't give their kids this ability, and then when they ask them to tidy them, the kids are always like, oh, why
I
do I need to
know.
do that? And
Yeah.
I'm actually separated from my partner, so
Okay.
I co-parent with my kids, and my kids will like when they come to my house, I'll be like, okay, you want to watch TV? Okay, you need to do your 100 burpees, you need to do 100 push-ups, and then you need to go tidy your room.
It needs to be
Afterwards,
earned, not given.
yeah, exactly. And the tidying their room part seems easy. It seems like the easy bit, so they don't even mind. They just go do it quickly. Whereas, like, I know when their moms, when she tells them to go tidy their room, they're like sitting there going, oh,
For a child that is not used to tidying their room, I think after this conversation and think about the process of my daughter, my eldest daughter, that's probably the best way to start. Start tidying your room. How
mhm,
to start your day in the right way. Like now, alhamdulillah, now
yeah,
she tidies her room, brushes her teeth, gets changed, and puts her pajamas away. That's her routine first thing in the morning. No matter what, not even it's a weekend, doesn't matter.
that is ideally what you want. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
I really commend you for doing that
Well, I
because
appreciate that.
it's teaching them independency,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and the ability to look after themselves, the ability to feed themselves, the ability to look after their own entertainment. And these are the best lessons we could teach our children.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing.
Prepare them for adulthood.
Definitely, definitely. I want to quickly go over regulation. Sorry, emotional regulation, because as I mentioned the story earlier, my daughter, she came home crying. Teacher has no idea what it was about. I can't remember where it was now. It was basically so my daughter has eczema on her face, and the teacher said, "What's that on your face?" in front of all the kids,
Wow.
and all the kids were watching, and
Mm,
like it's either the teacher was not aware that her kids were around and
yeah.
she could have done it better, done it privately,
Yeah.
or she just does not have any emotional regulation herself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've questioned the teacher, and they're already in defense mode, just like that,
Yes.
straight
Of
away,
course.
naturally, because they're like, oh shit, my job, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble, I don't want to be told off, and like, and me and my wife, I feel like we are quite good when we're talking to teachers, like, look, we're not in trouble, you're not in trouble, we're not criticizing you, we're just something like, just be a bit mindful, where it said, how it said, because our daughter is quite emotionally intelligent. She
Yeah. Yeah.
she, she
She's
knows she knows what she feels, and she's gonna feel a certain way if someone's gonna be saying something about her face. Like any
yeah.
kid would.
Of course. Of course. My daughter's the same as well. She's just, and then the girls are naturally that way. And Joe, that's the problem. We don't pay our teachers enough to be psychology experts. We, you know,
But you don't have to be an expert though, do
no, no,
you?
yeah, exactly. They don't even need to be an expert, but it'd be nice if they read a book.
It would be nice if there was some training about it.
exactly. If they're training, if they were trained about it, if they read a book about it, but we don't pay them enough for them to undergo this training. And it's so important that they should.
But it's interesting though, because like mental health is a big thing, and like if we're talking about mental health and emotional regulation, surely that's together. I mean, I'm a mental health first aider as well, and naturally straight away, that's I'm grabbing onto that. Be like, hold on a sec. Unless another thing could be like they actually haven't been trained on mental health.
Well, that's the thing. When people are stressed, when people are confused, um, they're easier to control. And are we really doing anything about this mental health crisis in schools? And we can't even give our teachers the training to manage situations like these where they need to have a duty of care over our children's emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because something can happen in the classroom and it can torment you for the rest of your life. And that's why I say the best person to teach your child is you. And if you're conscious enough a parent to be watching this right now and listen to this, then I would suggest remove your child from school and teach them at home yourself.
I don't know if you watch MMA and UFC. There's a guy called
Oh
Khabib.
yeah, love it.
There's a guy called Khabib. I don't know his last name, but
Nurmagomedov,
yeah. So there was a video popped up, with these algorithms and everything. He said he doesn't understand. He more or less said he doesn't understand the concept of school. You put your child into a school with a stranger that you don't know, you've never met, and they're spending most of their time throughout the whole year with them. And if you compare the hours and times, they spend more time at school with a stranger than they do with their parents at home.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just like one stranger, it's a carousel of strangers. So it'd be fine if they were going to spend it with one teacher and they were building a connection with that teacher over years. But no, that our kids go to school, they get one teacher. In secondary school, they get one teacher. So primary school, they get one teacher for 1 year. And in secondary school, they get one teacher per class. And it's just like they never have the ability to build that connection, that teacher-student connection that would enable them to grow faster in their learning. Because remember, we talked about how if you can make things relatable, then they learn more efficiently. Whereas a teacher will never know their student.
Yeah, definitely.
They'll not even know enough to know that there's problems at home.
Yeah. Well, you mean for the teacher or for the child?
Yeah, like obviously there's so many kids out there that are like the school is actually an escape.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
They prefer being at school than being at home.
Yeah. That's right.
And the teachers should be in a position where they can see this, but they're not because they aren't able to build that connection.
And not paid enough, not trained to do it. And ultimately, it's not what we said at the beginning of the conversation. The kids are just a number as well, just like us. When we're in, the mainstream of work. I know for every child, a school gets something like $2,000 or something. I don't know whether that's secondary school or from the government. They get money for getting a kid into school. So you can see where the incentive is. I don't know if that's entirely correct, but I am sure that they get money for each child to get into school. So you can see why there's a bit of pressure to get them into school. This is a quick fire round, a quick one because I am going proper overtime. Right. Who was your hero growing up?
Growing up, I don't know, someone fictional. Ryu from Street Fighter.
Cool. Favorite app that you like to use, or an app that you're using a lot right now?
App that I'd like to use. Telegram.
Telegram?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Your favorite meal?
If it's not something by my mom, lasagna.
Oh, good choice. TV show that you're watching right now?
I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch
Me
TV. To
neither.
be honest, I'm watching recently the Planets by Brian Cox.
Cool.
It gets me to sleep.
What would you say to your younger self?
I would
In
say
terms of advice that you'd give to your younger self.
I would say don't take your foot off the gas when you're winning.
Cool. Brilliant. Brilliant. Top 3 tips for people who want to homeschool their child.
Okay, I would say number one is trust yourself. If you can raise your child, you can teach your child. Number two is your child doesn't need that kind of socializing that happens at school. You can give them better quality socializing at home. And I made a series of videos on this. And number three is your child will have a better education if you can focus it on just a few subjects rather than just learning a shallow amount on a broad range of subjects.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, last question. What does health mean to you?
Health is primary. Health is absolutely the first thing, and I'm very rigid with my health. I will eat a very boring diet because I know I'm getting nutritional value from it. It's health is fuel, you know, and if you're trying to operate at optimum peak performance all the time, then you need to look after it. Because I look after my kids 3 days a week, which means I only get a 4-day work week. And I'm trying to do all my training and everything in between that. So I can't get ill. I can't afford to get ill. I need to be operating at 100%, 7 days a week, every day of the year. So that's, for me, health is primary.
Plans for the future, and where can everyone find you?
So yeah, I am at performanceparenting.com. I'm also the youth schooler on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. I'm actually launching a free course in the coming weeks. It's called Screen Time Safety and Cleansing Guide. It's for parents who are introducing screen time to their children, and also for parents whose kids are addicted. It'll give you a general idea of being aware of what your kids are watching, how much they should be watching, how you should be developing them, what kind of systems you can put in place for them to entertain them without screens. And that's going to come with a free community as well. We're going to build, somewhere where we can talk about valuable forms of screen time, whether that's, playing games, whether that's things that we've watched, whether that's new movies that are coming out. And essentially, my other course, that is the paid course, is about using screen time to train your kids to become better versions of themselves. We teach high performance and physical and academic pursuits that they have.
That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. Right, and that's it. Yeah, man, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate this. This is such an interesting topic for me, and I'm sure there's people out there who are, looking into homeschooling and seeing how they can go about it. So,
no, thank you, Omar. And that was great speaking to you. I'd happily speak to you again. I think there's so much stuff, more stuff we could have covered.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm really up for that because, this is just about how to homeschool essentially and things that people are missing out on and the comparisons with school and homeschooling. But yeah, there's a lot of things we can, inshallah, cover in the future.
Inshallah.
Okay, bro.
Okay.
Take care, bro.